Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Motorsport Diaries, my new motorsport podcast slash YouTube channel that I am now starting. You probably know me from TikTok, which is F1 Diary. If you don't know it, go follow it. And yeah, I wanted to make a YouTube channel slash podcast for such a long time because I have so many opinions on so many things, and I have a lot of thoughts. And I love posting on TikTok. I post like 5 trillion times a day, if you know. But sometimes I feel like it's better to kind of just do a podcast or a longer form video. So that's kind of what I'm going to be doing here. I have a lot of different types of videos I want to make. Today's episode is more of just an intro episode into me and my passion of motorsport. And yeah, because I kind of just wanted to do like a little bit of an intro before I start with the heavy stuff. Some of the episodes that I'm planning to do on here are interviews, deep dives, motorsport rants, race recaps, um, just a lot of things. Maybe explanation videos, Slayer Prey videos. You can't not have a Slayer Prey. So a lot of different things. So now more about me. My name is Jordan, but on social media I go by Joe. Either one is fine. I'm from New York City in the US, which is literally so hard as a motorsport fan. Being an American, oh my god, it's so bad. It's so bad for so many different reasons. A, it's bad for like time zones. B, it's bad for races because I have not been, which I'm going to talk about later, but I have not been to a race yet because I'm literally in New York. Where am I going to go? I'm not going to Miami. I'm not going to Vegas. It's very expensive. And C, it's bad because Americans constantly get shit on. Um, yeah, like everyone's always like, we don't need any more American races. I'm like, okay, okay. So yeah, that's fun and fresh. But yeah, I'm from New York City, which I love. And I am in university. I'm 21 years old, which is insane. And I know I literally don't look 21. And everyone always tells me, like, oh my God, I thought you were 16. I thought you were 15. No offense. And I'm like, girl, I know. I know I look young. Bear with me. Like, please. It's okay. It's fine. But yeah, I'm 21. I'm now a senior in college, which is absolutely insane. Like what the hell? The time went by so fast. And I'm a journalism major, which is super fun, and I love journalism. I love writing. I love speaking, which is obviously because I have a YouTube channel, I have a TikTok. It's a very big passion of mine. I'm studying abroad this year in England, which I'm super excited for. I've always wanted to study abroad, so I'm literally so excited. Ever since I was a kid, I'm like, I'm going to Europe. I'm going to study abroad. I'm studying abroad. And I know I do a lot of things where it's like, it's almost like I basically decided as a kid I'm going to do it. So I just have to do it. Like, for example, like I just decided when I was like 12, I'm going to be a journalism major. I was like, yeah, I'm going to go into journalism. And here I am. I've always decided, like, oh yeah, I'm just going to study abroad. And like, I didn't even think it through. I'm just like, yeah, I'm going to do it. Oh well. Am I scared? Yes. But it'll be exciting. It'll be fun. And you know what's so annoying though? Of course, when I'm going to study abroad and like I'm going to be in Europe, there's no F1 races in Europe because the European leg has finished. So now it's just like South America and the Americas, which I'm like, bro, and Asia. So I'm like, what the actual hell? Great. So it's not like I can go to an F1 race while I'm in Europe, which is so annoying. And two, it's not like it's helping me out in terms of like time zones because when I'm in Europe, the races are going to be in the US when the race time was like convenient for me when I'm in America. So now I'm still going to have to wake up early when I'm in Europe to watch the races that I shouldn't be waking up early for. So that's splendid. But yeah, but I mean, it'll be an amazing time. I'm so excited. I want to visit like all of the motorsport activities in Europe because Europe is so blessed with the amount of motorsport locations and things to do. Like there's the Silverstone Museum, the Ferrari Museum, there's so many different things. Maranello factory, I'm pretty sure you could visit. I think you can visit the McLaren factory. I'm pretty sure you can visit a lot of the like F1 factories, which is so exciting. F1 arcade in London. Oh my god. I'm planning to literally go to any F1 motorsport related location that I can when I'm in Europe. I'm just gonna do it all. I'm like make a bucket list, like a checklist of all of the motorsport things to do in Europe. And I'm gonna try to conquer all of them. That's like my goal when I study abroad. So let's go into some of the motorsport things and kind of my starting in motorsport and how I got into F1 specifically, I guess, because everyone wants to know that. It's so funny. Whenever I go live or I ask you guys to ask me questions, and literally all of the questions are like, how did you get into motorsport? How did you get into F1? What got you into F1? And I think everyone wants to know that, which I think is funny. So I'm gonna tell you, my intro to motorsport is actually really funny, and I honestly think as an American, it's pretty hard to get into motorsport. My parents could give a rat's ass about motorsport, like they don't care. They don't really like sports in general. My family isn't really a sports family. I myself am an athlete, and I grew up as a competitive athlete, and so did my brother, and I'm still kind of a competitive athlete, but like motorsports was not in the no. We only did our sport, which is fencing. We only focused on like our sport. We didn't care about like other sports. Um so yeah, as an American, I also think it's hard to get into motorsport because I don't know. I never heard of like F1 ever since a couple years ago. I didn't even know it existed. You kind of hear about like NASCAR, but I think in America like NASCAR kind of has like a bad rep, and everyone just kind of thinks it's like some like hillbilly southern weird like no. It kind of has a bad rep, I would say. So the first time I even heard about F1 was from this guy that I was talking to 2 years ago now. So like when I was in my sophomore year, and it was in May time, like around May, and he was like, "Oh, I'm going to the Miami Grand Prix," and like he was posting all these photos from the Miami Grand Prix on his Instagram story, and I'm like, "Where the fuck even is he? Like, what even is this? Like, what?" I was like, "Ew, he's such a loser. Like, he's really watching like cars just go around in circles. What the hell?" And like that's why that was like my first impression. I was like, "Oh, he's just obsessed with this," and like he was in like this F1 kind of club in my school, and I'm just like, "What is he doing?" Fast forward to summer. I'm not talking to this guy anymore. And it's around June time. June, I would say, yeah. And I'm like a really big reader. I love reading books. Not really anymore, but I used to be such a big reader. I was obsessed. And I've heard of this series called the Dirty Air series by Lauren Asher. It's a terrible series. I'm gonna keep it a buck with you guys. I'm gonna be straight up honest. Do not read it. Especially if you're a motorsport fan, I think if you don't really know anything about F1, it's not that bad because you don't know that there's like so many discrepancies and like errors in terms of like facts. But as a racing fan, it's a terrible book. But I wasn't a racing fan when I discovered it. And the funny thing is, I didn't even start reading it. I was gonna read it and I downloaded it on my iPad. And then I was like, oh, I want to like learn because I don't know, I'm stupid. I was like, I want to learn a little bit like about F1 or like motorsport before I even start reading this book. So I'm not confused. So I remember one day in the summer, I go onto YouTube and I literally think I just searched like Formula One. I specifically remember watching like a challenge on McLaren's channel from like Carlos and Lando. I remember watching a lot of Carlando videos, and literally after like the first two videos I watched, I was hooked. And I just started watching all of like F1's YouTube videos and everything. So I will say I think honestly like the drivers' personalities is probably what got me into the sport, I will say, because like my first impression was the YouTube channel and like their personalities from the YouTube channel. And I was like, oh my God, this is like so fun and funny and this seems so cool. Um and then I really started to like look more into it. And I remember like 2 weeks straight, I was just like researching and like looking at past races and trying to learn everything I could. And I was just obsessed with it. Literally obsessed. It was insane. And then my first race was the Hungarian GP. I still remember it because it was like, I don't know, I was just so excited. I remember waking up at like 7 a.m. and I was so excited. I just like ran to my TV. I was like putting on ESPN. And I remember I even woke up like an hour early because I saw that the race started at 8, I think. But that wasn't when the race started. That's when like the pre-show started. And I didn't know at that time. So I'm like waking up. I go to my TV. I'm like, why isn't it starting yet? And it's literally just like Sky Sports walking around with like interviewing people, and I'm just like, what's going on? So I remember watching like an hour of like the pre-race, and I was just like, okay. And I remember my mom was kind of like, what are you doing? And I remember my parents when I first got into F1, they thought it was like one of those hyper obsessions because I used to have those hyper obsessions. I had like a hyper obsession with like Shawn Mendes and small things, people, you know, YouTubers. We all have it when we're growing up. Just like little mini obsessions that you kind of it lasts like a couple months, I would say, maybe some weeks. So my parents thought I was like I remember specifically talking to my mom and she was like so convinced that I was gonna be done with F1 in like 2 months. She was kind of like, okay, haha, like you're waking up to watch the race, like, but she was not convinced. She was like, you're gonna be over it in a couple months, I know. Which it's a year later, and here I am. And honestly, you know what's funny actually? Like, I do think, like, deep down, I was almost scared that it was gonna be, like, a small hyperfixation for, like, a couple months, and I was kinda nervous because I felt like I really was, like, passionate about it, and I was really interested in it, but, like, I was so used to having hyperfixations on, like, things that I was almost kind of nervous, like, I hope it didn't turn into a hyperfixation, and I was almost so scared as time went on that slowly I would start to lose interest, like, that was actually a fear of mine, that I was gonna slowly start to lose interest in F1 and motorsport, but clearly that didn't happen, which I'm so happy about. If anything, it was the opposite, which yeah, I'm super happy about. But yeah, I remember when I first got into F1, my parents were doubtful. My brother was confused. I remember he was like, "What do you like?" I posted on my Instagram story after the Hungarian GP, and my brother was like, "What are you doing? Like, since when do you like F1?" So that was pretty funny. But yeah, that was kind of my intro to the sport. That's kind of how I got into it. Um, and yeah, I remember I got into it right before the summer break. The Hungarian GP happened, and then I had to wait like a month or two for the next race. And I was just like, okay, great. And I remember I went on F1 Twitter. I made a lot of friends from F1 Twitter. Um, and that was super fun. Literally, I remember I was in a group chat on F1 Twitter, like my first couple weeks of being into F1. And I had a group chat on Twitter and it went over onto Instagram, and crazy enough to this day, I am still in touch and in contact with those same girls, like 4 or 5, 6 girls from that group chat on Instagram. So we've literally been talking for a whole year and it's insane. So that's pretty crazy. But yeah, that was kind of my intro into the sport and what kind of got me into motorsport. But I think that's kind of what got me into it, but I think what made me stay is just the sport itself. I think the sport itself is just so beautiful. I don't know, I just love racing, which to me is so weird, and I never would have thought this would happen ever, that like I would be interested in racing. Like that's just so crazy to me. Yeah, it's just strange. It's a strange sport to be interested in, I think. But I think it also in a way it makes sense. I think it makes perfect sense for me because I kind of have ADHD and it's so hard to like stay focused. So for example, when it comes to like soccer, I can't watch soccer. I really wanted to get into it. I couldn't get into it because like it just takes so long. It takes like an hour for a goal to get scored and like I just can't do it. I can't sit there and watch it. It's just so hard. Same with golf, baseball, sports like that. You know. So I think it makes perfect sense why I am interested in motorsport because like it's so fast paced and you're always on your toes and you're always just like waiting for something to happen. There's so much adrenaline. And I mean, now with the current season with Max constantly winning, maybe not as much, but there's still like you're just on edge. Like right when the lights go out, you're just sitting there and you want to throw up, but you're also so excited and it's just like one of the best worst feelings ever if that makes any sense. Just like waiting. And I love it. I love it so much. And I think there's so much that goes into racing. I love everything about it, like the actual technicalities of it, the strategy, the racing itself, just like watching it happen, like watching overtakes is just like everything is just so great. And I also just love the community around it. I think at times it can be very toxic and not the best, but I think there's also just such amazing people in this community, and I think it's a very tight knit community, which is weird. I feel like from my perspective, you look at sports like football, soccer, basketball, and there's so many fans. It's just such a big sport, and I think motorsport, F1, IndyCar, they're all like they're it's a big sport, you know, but somehow it feels so small and somehow the community feels so together. And I just love that. I just love the F1 community so much. Um and yeah, I also just love I think what's cool about it also for me and like why it's so easy for me to follow is because especially with F1, there's only 10 teams, there's only 20 drivers, and that makes things so easy and it's so easy to kind of follow along. Whereas you look at soccer, basketball, like the big sports like that, there's so many teams, there's so many people on those teams. Like how do you even follow it? Like how do you even find a favorite team? Like how does that even work? And I think F1 is so great because, yeah, it's just such a small group of people that it's so easy to kind of follow everything, which I love so much. And yeah, I don't know. So I just love motorsport so much, and I'm just really happy with this passion of mine. Um, yeah, it's that was like so long for literally no reason. And now I guess I'll talk about kind of my favorites in motorsport and kind of what type of motorsport I like, who I like, stuff like that. So we all know I love F1, of course. It was the first motorsport I got into. I would say it's probably my favorite motorsport. And in F1, I would say my favorite driver is George Russell. I think most people know that. I actually have a George Russell hat, Mercedes hat, and I love George Russell. I know it's very hot take, unpopular, and like he gets a lot of hate, which last year, rightfully so, he was a menace on track. I still remember Coda, first lap of Coda, that was brutal. But yeah, I don't know. I can't really explain why I like George Russell. I just do. But I also love Charles Leclerc. I love Alex Albon, and I also really like Oscar Piastri. So those are kind of some of my favorite drivers. In terms of teams, I think as an American, it's kind of weird because it's like in Europe, if you're Italian, for example, you love Ferrari. You're a Tifosi diehard. Um, I think there's some countries that are kind of with some teams, whereas in America, it's kind of like I don't know. It's hard to kind of be a fan of a team. But I would say like my favorite teams would be Ferrari and Mercedes, I guess, because of my love for George Russell. So I would say Mercedes. And I also have a Ferrari hat, so yeah, I guess I would say Ferrari, which sucks because they're doing so bad this year. So bad. Terrible. It's hard out here. But yeah. And I also really like Williams. I would say I like Williams a lot as a team. I think they're a really great team. And yeah, in terms of other motorsport, like, because I'm saying motorsport, and you're probably like, what are you even talking about? Like, it's only F1. No, girl, no, it's not. We like other motorsport. And I'm going to talk about what other types of motorsport I like. So, I've started to really get into IndyCar recently. I am like IndyCar's number one promoter. My whole TikTok is literally just talking about IndyCar. Like, why you should get into IndyCar? IndyCar. And I got into it over the summer because I went to my first IndyCar race in Nashville for my 21st birthday. It was literally so fun. One of the most fun times I've had ever in my life. It was just so great. I love IndyCar. So I'm starting to get into that now. And my favorite drivers in IndyCar would be David Malukas. I love David Malukas so much. And I'm so happy he's going to be at Arrow McLaren. It's going to be great. I like Pato Ward. I love Joseph Newgarden and Scott McLaughlin, the Bus Bros. I'm literally a Bus Bro girl for life. I want to get their merch, but it's so fugly and disgusting. Like, bro, make better merch, please. But yeah, I love Bus Bros. And yeah, those are kind of some of my favorite IndyCar drivers. And in terms of other motorsport, I'm really trying to get into endurance racing because I think it's so cool. So I'm trying to get into like the World Endurance Cup and kind of like the IMSA WeatherTech series. I'm trying to get into those. Those seem super cool. And I'm trying to get into MotoGP, but it's honestly so hard because I think it's probably one of the more difficult and different sports compared to like IndyCar and F1, you know? And I'm trying to get into GT racing because GT racing is so cool because they race at night, which I think is super, super cool with like headlights. But yeah, those are kind of some of the types of motorsports that I'm trying to get into. And I also kind of follow F2 and F3 regularly. I know a little bit about that as well. And my favorite F2 driver right now is Vesti, and I really hope that he gets an F1 seat sometime soon because I love him so much and I think he deserves it. So I guess where I want to go with this podcast, YouTube channel, I guess is maybe just I don't know. I kind of want this to be a space where I can kind of just come and talk about my passion and maybe help other people, um, educate people, have fun. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit about me, about this channel, about my motorsport journey, history, and everything. And I hope that you guys stay tuned for the other episodes that I'm planning to do. I'm trying to do maybe like one episode a week. I don't know. But hopefully you guys stay tuned. If you guys want to follow along, you could always subscribe to this channel and I guess like this podcast. And I guess follow me on TikTok, which is F1 Diary, and on Instagram, Motorsport Diaries. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye!